What's up, everybody? In this video, it's going to be pretty news light. I have one ETF article to talk about. We did see some pretty large outflows the other day, and then I'm going to get right into the charts. I want to look at Bitcoin. I want to look at CleanSpark, BTBT, take a look at IREN, and a couple other names as well. Give you my thoughts on their charts and things to look out for. But first off, let's talk about the spot ETFs. We saw a $536 million outflow. Ethereum ETFs saw a $57 million outflow. And this is the largest outflow in multiple weeks, with outflows on 8 out of 12 of the funds. Even BlackRock's IBIT saw an outflow, which isn't very usual. And while ETH also saw outflows across many of its funds, one fund that actually saw inflows was BlackRock's ETHA, that saw $46 million of an inflow. And I'll highlight this last piece here. This is a reminder that after weeks of inflows, the market can still turn on a dime. Well said, well said. Now, of course, there's other things going on. There's a little bit of worry from banks taking out kind of iffy loans, recent companies going into bankruptcy, trade tensions, the list goes on. Of course, the government shut down, so we're not getting certain data that would help guide us, but I digress. First off, I wanted to look at BTBT. This is an ETH play, and one thing that we were seeing is a bearish divergence. The RSI was losing its strength, selling off, seeing lower highs. Meanwhile, the price was seeing higher highs. This was a sign that the market was about to shift for BTBT. Not only that, but it wasn't able to clear some previous zones that we saw back in July of 2025. Got hung up right around its recent tops there. Its trend isn't broken yet. See this uptrend that started basically back in September, and this even larger trend that started back in April. You know, we're still intact with our trend. This trend I would keep an eye on if we start approaching this roughly 350 area in the next couple of days. Keep an eye on if we break it. We're probably testing our 50 MA at $3. We have the 200 MA here at $278. Keep an eye on the trend. If the trend breaks, we're in for more pain. If we get a bounce here, we're likely to come test our cycle highs, in my opinion. I also wanted to pull up IREN. Just like with BTBT, we saw a bearish divergence here. Equal highs on the RSI, higher highs on the chart. You know, all of these stocks are pretty much trading over their moving averages. They've been in very nice trends. You can see a clear trend for IREN. If IREN breaks this trend line, I would expect some pain. It's still far away from it. We're very far away from our 50 MA at about $37. 200 MA is down at $17. You know, a lot of these stocks were due to cool down. A lot of these stocks have seen insane runs. For example, IREN was like a $5 stock back in April. $5 stock. Some profit taking is natural, especially while something like Bitcoin has been selling off, showing weakness lately. The whole market's been a little iffy here and there lately, but keep an eye on IREN's trend. Here's on the weekly. It's pretty clear that it's in this, you know, roughly what, 45-degree upward angle. If we break this, we're probably heading towards our the moving averages that I showed you on the daily. Weekly is still very, very, very overbought. This gives people a chance to buy on a cool down. Instead of buying the new all-time highs day after day, people were looking for a cool down. Here it is. Can it go lower? Absolutely. But at least those of you that were looking to get into something like IREN, rather than buying it on a 15% up day, you can buy it into some red. Although I would be very cautious of buying this much of an overbought stock. Now I want to pull up Bitcoin, and we were looking at this weekly. This is on the weekly here. Here's the 50 MA on the weekly. It has found support on it multiple times throughout the cycle here. Look at this, how it bounces right here. This was September 2024. This was March 2025. You know, Bitcoin broke this trend that it was in. This beautiful trend it's been in for quite a long time, since we're talking like April. Just like a lot of the Bitcoin miners, they've been in beautiful uptrends since around April 2025. Just like with Bitcoin, it broke this trend. Look at that reaction on the break of its trend. Wow, it's almost like the market was watching this trend too. How insane. So keep an eye on the 50 MA. We bounced really close to it. We bounced to like 103. 50 MA is at 102. Also an important level of support here that we held as support here back in June. Roughly $100,000 psychological support area. An important area of support. Also, you know, we were talking about this level. If we break this roughly 107 area, we're heading lower. Sure enough, we did head towards the 50 MA. Keep an eye on the 50 MA. If we retest it, we need to hold it. It would be preferable to see us hold it just like we have in the past. Sure, you get a wick down, but you don't get a candle closing under. Keep an eye on that 50 MA. One thing that we also pointed out the other day is a bullish divergence. The RSI has been rising, is set to hit a higher low, although we'll see what happens here if we just keep tanking. Who knows? And then, you know, this was just since we've watched it, but you see the price is continuing lower while the RSI is starting to pick up from its oversold position back in October 11. Also, we do have a bearish divergence back here towards the top. This is why these divergences are so important to try to spot out. They can give you an idea of what's to come. Higher highs on Bitcoin's chart while it was hitting lower highs on the RSI. Combine that with some very large volume in terms of selling. Some of the largest selling volume in multiple months. I do personally think Bitcoin is a buy on further weakness. Don't go in heavy-handed. Know that we could see a bear market in 2026. Take a cautious approach, add slowly but surely. But in my opinion, Bitcoin's always a DCA anyways. I also want to talk about Sphere 3D. I haven't talked about this one in a while. It's kind of an embarrassment in my opinion. A very bad performing Bitcoin miner. Risky small cap. We're talking about this like, you know, tens of millions of dollars in market cap. Very small compared to the others. And position size should be small in terms of that as well. Sphere 3D lately has been doing pretty good from right around August. Well, really, it bottomed out in April, right when everything started its uptrend. Sphere 3D basically bottomed out here at like 36 cents. It's sitting at like almost 90 cents now. So it's done good recently. Over the last couple months, it's done almost a 3x. But the reality is this has been a horrible stock. Look at this. This is terrible. Horrible. The trend is your friend. Avoid this. Now, if you have an exit plan, and if this, then that. If it goes to this price lower, I'm selling. If it goes to this price higher, I'm selling. Have a plan. That's perfectly fine. My dumbass sat here and held it all cycle, and it's still down like 40% for me. Definitely one of my worst performing stocks in recent history. One thing that's interesting though, to give it some redemption, is it does have a golden cross here. We did see a recent golden cross, very recent. But here's something that's concerning. We've got the price going higher, and we've got the RSI cooling off. Bearish divergences across the board, far and wide. One thing you'd want to do for Sphere 3D is keep an eye on this trend. I don't probably have it in the best spot. Here we go, that's a little better. One thing you want to do if you are watching Sphere 3D is keep an eye on this trend. This is a clear trend. If it breaks this, which is very close, probably heading down to the moving averages here at like 70 cents. Wouldn't be surprised in the least to see that. The good thing is it did break some recent highs from back in May, so it's seeing new highs that it hasn't seen since like January, so almost a full year. Things have been improving a little bit for it, but yeah, this is a very high risk, probably low reward in reality Bitcoin miner. Very risky. I do think there are better options out there, but I'm gonna hold it until the end of the year, for better or for worse, and sell it by the end of the year if the story doesn't change. Probably sell it either way, even if the story does change, to be honest. Now, CleanSpark, we'll end on this one. Keep an eye on its trend. It's been in this trend since September. If it breaks this trend, we're heading to our moving averages. They are pretty far down below us, similar to IREN. You know, it's been on a pretty nice uptrend, not as good as IREN, of course, but that has caused it to move quite far away from its moving averages. So the 50 MA is down here at $13, 200 MA is down at 10. You know, these stocks have had some pretty great runs recently, and once you get some market fear, then you get a really violent sell-off because of how much things have run recently. So, you know, in my opinion, this sell-off wouldn't have been as violent if CleanSpark was still in the $10 area. It's the fact that these things have ran up so much that gives them the possibility of seeing these double-digit down days. You could look at it two ways. You could look at it as a buying opportunity, or you could look at the cycle and say it's still very late in the cycle. I'm gonna wait until the new year, maybe nibble a little bit at something you like. But yeah, you got to be careful. You know, we are at the end of the cycle here. Maybe Bitcoin continues to sell off in the cycle and it kind of breaks the cycle. Typically, every peak year, 2021, this year, 2025, 2017, 2013, those are always the peak year. You see exuberance and euphoria to end the year. If we don't see that to end this year, then I would see that fear and that pain as a chance to add, because in reality, if that does happen, then the cycle is somewhat broken, or the cycle is different from past ones. Instead of rallying to new all-time highs consistently for the alts and for Bitcoin and for whatever, so on and so forth, instead you're selling off and seeing new recent lows. Well, I would see that as a buying opportunity then, and not as a time to sell. I kind of touched on that in a previous video about being able to pivot, being able to adjust to what the market gives you, which you don't need a crystal ball for, despite what people say. We're not trying to time everything perfectly. We're just trying to follow the market, look at what it's done in the past, look at what it's doing now, compare and contrast, and decide, you know, is Bitcoin in a greedy phase? Is it in a fearful phase? Buy or sell accordingly. But anyways, thanks as always for watching, guys. What have you been doing? Hopefully you guys have been trimming recently while things were going so great, freeing up some cash for potential buying opportunities, whether you're talking about now or whether you're talking about down the road, maybe 2026. Hopefully you guys have been trimming a little bit off the table here and there after these massive runs that we have seen. and not getting too greedy, because in the end, no one really knows. Things could potentially go up another 5x, or they could tank 80%. No one really knows, so get it while the getting's good. Thanks as always for watching, guys. If you made it this far, consider hitting the like, subscribe, ring the notification bell. I never say that. Probably help more if I did. Thanks again. Have a good weekend, and I'll see you next time.